What you know, Alibis, welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Good to have you here. It's Wednesday, April 16th. Hope you guys had a good day. And the state rested today. And shortly after, Lori sort of rested. And I say sort of because she technically has until Monday to decide whether or not she will testify. If she decides to testify, she would take the stand on Monday. If she decides not to testify, she will rest in front of the jury on Monday. Tomorrow, they're going to be going over jury instructions starting at 10:45 in the morning. I've heard it's not expected to take too long, and the jury will not be there for that. Let's jump into testimony. We had one witness today, and that was Detective Duncan. He was the lead investigator on this case after it was handed to him by Detective Moffat. He responded to the residents after hearing the call come over the radio. From a distance, he saw Alex sitting on the sidewalk, and he never saw Lori that day. He was asked to assist Detective Coons with the crime scene as an extra set of eyes and hands. He was not the case agent at the time. He said a crime scene tech had been inside taking photos, and then they did the Faro scan, and after those photos were taken, they all went in. There were no furnishings in the living room. He did say there were the mirrors on 3 different walls and then a few photos. He saw Charles lying on his back. There wasn't a lot of blood, but he did see blood in the webbing of Charles's left hand, and his first thought was Charles likely grabbed his chest after being shot. There was no blood on the floor around him. They show a photo of Charles on the floor. And he also saw the bat in the room on Charles's right side to the north of his head. He did see blood on the kitchen faucet. He then went into the room where Alex was staying and secured the gun. He removed the magazine and cycled it to remove any cartridges that might be in the chamber, and there was a single .45 caliber cartridge in there. They show a photo of a shell casing and the magazine. The gun itself had no biological material on it. Inside the orange bag that was in Alex's room was a gun case that had no lock. There were also extra magazines and a health saving card. He didn't know at first Alex had the boo-boo on his head, but he later learned that. They were looking for any transfer blood evidence on the gun, and he explains if Alex had been hit on the head, touched his head, and then went to get the gun after, they might have some transfer of blood from Alex, but they found none. The gun, by the way, was registered to Alex. The medical examiner came to remove the body, and the witness was there. He cleaned up the blood on the floor that was under Charles's body, and that's when he noticed that defect after wiping up the blood. The defect was in the area where the exit wound was on Charles's shoulder. He said they're trying to make sense of things. You have 2 casings and 2 projectiles. One went into the baseboard and one was near Charles's body. A shot went through and through and then entered into the wall. The lower abdominal entry wound was an upper left trajectory, and he looked in the room and didn't find anything until they moved his body. He said this 100% suggested to him that Charles was on the floor when he was shot in the abdomen. They cut the floor out where that defect was. He said they did not search Charles's rental car, and then his involvement was over for the day after that. His next involvement was in June of 2020. Prior to that, he helped Detective Moffat sort through iCloud, phone records, and other data like that. He said it took a lot of time to start finding phone numbers for everybody, iCloud accounts, writing warrants to get all this information. He looked through Charles's iCloud accounts and saw interactions prior to June 27th, 2019 and after. He saw a change in those interactions and then learned Charles found that email that was sent to Chad Daybell, reportedly written by him when Lori made that fake KK Walker Yahoo account. Charles saved a copy into his account. He found multiple text messages between Charles and Lori about this fake letter and also found evidence that Charles contacted both Chad and Tammy Daybell about the affair. With that KK Walker email account, the phone number on there was registered to Lori. Lori objects and cites relevance, but that's overruled. So they show that email. April 21st, 2019, they bring in the email where Lori invites Chad to Houston. That email account that she was using to fake the letter as if it were from Charles and also try to get Chad to come to Houston was active between April 21st and June 26th. April 21st, they bring in an email, and that is when Lori is inviting Chad to Houston. He did make that trip. That June 27th email where she's pretending to be Charles, they talk about the fact that Charles sent Adam a copy of that email. And they point out that Charles helped Lori move back to Arizona a week before this email was sent. They executed the search warrant for Charles and Lori's iCloud accounts. Lori had two. The first was Lori 4 Style with the number 4 and Lolly Time. In those iCloud accounts, he found screenshots of flights Lori took to Idaho in 2019. And then on March 20th, 2019, Chad and Lori flew back from Idaho to Arizona together. The witness also saw texts and emails between Charles and Adam. The Celebrite report shows the sent time and when the message was read. The witness saw that Charles arrived at the house, and then at 7:36, that text is sent, "Al is here," and it's read a few seconds later. Adam says they're planning something, and Charles says absolutely. The witness said Adam thought he was supposed to spend the night with Alex the night before, but Lori probably blocked that. Charles's last reply on that phone is, "What you do is up to you." 17 seconds later, Adam does reply, "I'm going to put pressure on him to have him come get me. See what he says." That message was read at 12:13 p.m. Adam sent another message at 7:49 saying that he and his son are going to the stake to play basketball, and his old friend, the bishop, is there, and he was going to have a conversation with his old friend. That was about the intervention. That text was read at 12:13 p.m. At that point, Lori had Charles's phone. They executed a search warrant on Alex's cell phone, and with the returns, Verizon provided images when they got that back. There is a photo of Charles's phone at 2:13 p.m. is sitting on a counter, and there is the text thread between Charles and Adam. They also took a photo of Adam's flight information, and at this point, Adam was still in Arizona. For Lori's Lolly Time iCloud, July 13th, 2 days after the murder at 5:57 p.m., there is a text from Alex to Lori. There are 3 thumbnails sent, and those are saved in her iCloud account. Those are those text messages between Charles and Adam about the intervention and also his flight information. The witness learned Charles's phone went with Lori after the shooting around the same time Adam sent that last text to Charles. After the shooting, we know Lori leaves at 7:49, and then at 7:52, Alex calls Lori, and that duration is just under a minute. At 8:06 a.m., Alex calls Lori again. That call was 55 seconds. If Lori left at 7:49 with Charles's phone, 17 minutes has lapsed up to that second call by Alex as Charles lay on the floor dying or dead. Alex waits another 30 minutes before calling 911 at 8:35 and 54 seconds. The state points out Lori never called 911. And then at 8:48, Lori and Tylee arrive back at the residence. Adam's phone records show he did call Alex asking to stay with him a few days before he came to Arizona. That call lasted over 20 minutes. The record also shows Adam calling Alex on July 10th at 3:22 p.m. when Adam arrived in Arizona. That call was not answered by Alex. He then texted Alex at 3:23 p.m. on July 10th. There was another communication by Adam to Alex at 6:28 p.m. Alex never called or texted Adam back. On July 11th at 7:40 a.m., Adam texts Alex with no response. On Charles's phone, the witness found the lease agreement for the house that Charles rented for Lori and the kids. The lease date was June 22nd, 2019. ending on June 30th, 2022. That was a 3-year lease. And they remind the jury that Charles was living in Houston. On the Lori for Style iCloud, she gave this email to the Banner Life Insurance Company. On this iCloud account, they also found a voice memo of Chad that was recorded in November 2018 at that Preparing a People conference in Arizona. They found text messages between Lori and Alex, and the witness knew Charles was said to be Ned Schneider, a dark spirit. He went through records looking for any mention of Ned, and he found some. February 15th, 2019. This is the first reference of Ned Schneider, and it's Alex to Lori. Ned was at the temple today looking for you. He thinks you're staying with me. Lori, that's so good. March 2nd, 2019, Alex to Lori. Ned just came by and Tylee unleashed on him. He said Charles was driving a rental car. Lori did not respond to that text. March 26th, Alex to Lori. Ned is still alive, just confirmed. Lori, it's not Ned, it's a new one. Ned is gone. They note this is during the girls' weekend that we've heard about through testimony where they're casting out the evil spirit. Lori to Alex, no one has seen him, right? Just talk to him. Alex, Charles's body is still alive. What did you learn? Lori, a lot. Still working on it. We'll call you later. The witness mentions that Lori frequently has people call her. The Lolly Time account was created on July 1st, 2019, after Charles contacted Lori, Chad, and Tammy Daybell about the affair. When going through the records, on July 28th, the witness saw a photo Lori sent Chad of the change of beneficiary form and also a photo of a computer screen with the designation form that was changed by Charles, making Kay the sole beneficiary. Chad's name in Lori's phone for this phone number is Bubby, and they said they got an audio recording from a local business where Chad listed this Bubby phone number as his. He said they went through a lot of texts. There were text messages between Lori and Alex saved in the Lolly Time account, and he noted that Lori gave Alex her new address, the one she moved into where Charles was shot. And there were messages leading up to the murder. On July 9th, be like Nephi. Then August 12th, Lori talks about going to the Social Security office. He saw text messages talking about other people being Z's, which is her abbreviation for zombies, because of their association with Charles. So they show text messages between Lori and Alex. July 9th, this is just a few days before the murder. Lori to Alex. So the plot thickens. Call me when you can. 47 minutes later, 9:50 p.m. Lori, getting sleepy. So I'm going to need you to stay close to me the next couple of days. Mel, too. She can't go to Utah. They are planning some kind of intervention, but want Mel out of the way so I'm left alone. I need to come get the stuff at your house tomorrow and secure it. Lots to do. Thank you for standing by me. It's all coming to a head this week. I will be like Nephi, I am told, and so will you. Alex calls Lori at 9:56 and they talk for 56 minutes. Lori texts Alex about meeting up with Melanice for lunch. Lori also invites Alex over to her house. The witness notes there are no text messages between Lori and Alex on the day of the murder. July 13th, Lori to Alex. Need you. Adam is freaking out. And the reason Adam was freaking out, by the way, is because he found out Charles had been shot. August 12th, Lori to Alex. She tells him she is at the Social Security office. They remind the jury that Serena Sharp used the word zombie when she testified. Detective Duncan saw Lori refer to people as Z's. September 3rd, 2019, Lori to Alex. Bad news on our brother. Alex, what's that? Lori, Z. Alex, really? When was that? Lori, as of early January. Alex, that explains his interest in Charles. Lori, Ned recruited him shortly after. This is why. He's part of the 24. Alex, that makes sense. Wow. Lori, more sad news. Guess who is the final Z of the 24? Alex, Pops or Brandon? Zach? Lori, nope. Think of Judas. Who loved me completely then turned against me? Alex, tell me. Lori, yes, our sweet Adam. He is in paradise. The real Adam. It finally makes sense. Alex, when did that happen? Lori, about the time he turned. Makes sense. He's being dedicated to Brandon and Ned. Alex, so February, and they point out this is the time when Lori disappeared and left JJ with Charles. Lori says, yep, meaning February. Alex, how did Zach die, or was he forced out? Lori, it's crazy, I know, but it's sad and true. Now we know all 24. Forced out, I think. With his anxiety, he wasn't strong enough to fight back. There was actually some more to this text thread they did not read just because you can't bring in the kids. It would cause a mistrial. And Lori is talking about JJ is stronger, fights them off every day, but that was not brought in. The state says in September, we're still talking about Charles being dead, and those who helped Charles are equally dark. July 10th through the 11th, back to the day before and day of the murder, messages between Lori and her sister Summer. The state says that Summer was giving updates on Adam and Zach's location on the 10th, and also giving information about a place to stay. At 2:04, Summer asks if Lori can talk. Mom is in the car with Adam and Zach on the way home from Sky Harbor. She wanted to know if she could confront him as a preemptive strike. I told her no, just collect information. Adam thinks Mel left for Utah today because that's the last we knew. I just left it that way. If you remember, Lori told Melanice she had to stay and not go to Utah. Summer continues, they're headed to Mimi's house, Mimi being her mother. Zach and Adam are going to a Spider-Man movie. Summer goes on to say, just me and the kids are here. There is a reference to JJ saying that he left something at her house. Summer offers for Lori to stay at her house and asks, would you rather stay here while we're gone and nobody will know you're here? And then she said they could tell Zach that they just boarded their dog. Zach was supposed to go stay with Summer's dog while they were out of town. At 8:10 p.m., she texts Lori, Zach and Adam are still here eating and playing. Adam was waiting for Al to text him back. Adam and Zach just left to go to Mimi's. July 11th, the day of the murder, the only communication with Summer was asking how is it going today, and there was no response. Back to that Lolly Time account, there was a contact for Melanice. It was Melanie B. On July 9th at 7:21 p.m., Lori texts Melanice, need to talk to you ASAP. She said she would call her in 5 minutes as she was finding out what to do. Lori tells Melanice, you can't go tomorrow. It's a setup for both of us. Still on the phone finding out the details. They have an elaborate plan. I'll call you soon. Lori responds, you can't go at all. We both need to stay here to defend ourselves. Is coming to a head. This week will change everything. 8:08, Melanice responds, probably why I have felt sick about going. 9:03 p.m., Lori to Alex. So the plot thickens. Call me when you can. So this next set of text messages, what the state explained is Melanice was pretending to be sick to distract Brandon because of this intervention. We know Brandon was not involved in this, but I'm sure they assumed that he was. Melanie says, I will tell him I don't want to get the kids sick, so I'll go to Mimi's, then the gym, temple, and lunch. Is it better to stay or go? Adam and Charles don't come until tomorrow. Brandon says we can get a flight tomorrow or whenever you're better. Melanice asks if Charles and Adam are coming, and Lori says they're coming in tonight. Today doesn't really matter. I'm here. I have the kids tomorrow, so it'll make it easier. Guess I should be sick tomorrow. Lori says, I think so. They'll move their plans to get rid of you. Melanice wanted to go to that wedding. Lori says, sorry, but this is part of her mission. Melanie says, I just got to the gym. Want to do lunch after? What's your day look like? Want to go to Glendale? Lori says, yes, let's do lunch. And I'm not going today. They discuss meeting up later. Melanice tells Lori Brandon has been here on the phone the whole time. She said, I told him I'm trying to get on a flight tomorrow. Maybe you can go tomorrow night. The state said Lori knew Melanice didn't need to stick around and could leave the night of the 11th. Melanie says, maybe I will tell him I'm not going at all, and then his plans are canceled. Lori, don't want you to regret not going. Melanice, how's things on your end? And I don't want to regret not going. Dreading packing and playing sick. Melanie says she's packing for the move, that is, and asks Lori, will you clear me? Lori, sure, I'll work on you now. Want to come over for a blessing? Melanice, sure, I can, but is Charles coming? Is Al there? Lori says, Al is here. 7:18 p.m., July 10th, Lori to Melanice. Charles says he will come over in the morning, and Melanie says, I'll head over. The day of the murder, Melanice to Lori. Zach is here. He acted like he was coming to get his mail. He told Brandon Adam is here, and Brandon acted like he didn't know. Melanice, I can fly back at 9 tonight and be back Saturday afternoon. That text message was sent at 7:53 a.m. after Lori left the house with Charles's phone. It was not read until 1:28 p.m. That would have been after Lori's police interview. When Detective Duncan was looking at Chad's records, Chad texted Lori on the day of Charles's murder at 6:06 a.m. Lori texted Chad at 6:12, Chad to Lori at 7:01 and 7:33. None of these messages were retrieved by investigators. At 12:39 p.m., there is a call between Lori and Chad that lasted a minute and 45 seconds. At 2:28 p.m., Lori and Chad talked for a little over 11 minutes, and the detective said this is the time that they were calling Lori to come back to the residence. Chad and Lori talked again at 5:42 for over 30 minutes, again at 7 p.m. for 11 minutes, and then at 7:54 for 13 minutes. When Detective Duncan looked at the text, he noticed a romantic relationship between them. But prior to Charles being murdered, he did not see romantic messages from Chad to Lori. After Charles's murder, he did. They get into Chad wrote a romantic story about him and Lori. We know this as loin fire, the James and Elena story. And in that, it contains some things about Adam, Brandon, and Ned. Chad asked Lori, how did Adam and Brandon find out? Lori said, my mom, because she was so mad, she went off on Adam. Chad asked if he had much to say in his defense, and Lori said Adam was very defensive, and he tried to justify everything, but mom kicked him out and said she would never talk to him again, and Lori says her mom is very dramatic. They remind the jury Adam testified he lost contact with his family after Charles was shot. There's a text from Chad to Lori about being deeply, madly in love with Lily. They go back to July of 2019, and Chad mentions Charles's Houston house, saying that they needed to cleanse the darkness that he caused. Then the prosecution says, cheek to cheek, loin to loin. They talk a little more about the loin fire. It ends with Chad saying he's going to take a shower, and there were a couple of little snickers there in the courtroom. Multiple lovey-dovey texts between the two of them. July 15th, Lori calls Banner Life to indicate she is the beneficiary. July 16th through 17th, more affirmations of love in the text messages. July 18th, Lori learns she's not the beneficiary. 12:18 p.m., she texts Chad, so I talked to the insurance company. He changed it in March. It was probably Ned before we got rid of him. They can't tell me who, of course, but it's done, and I'll still get the $4,000 in Social Security. A few members of the jury turned and looked at Lori when this was read, because it's the first time you're hearing it was probably Ned before we got rid of him. On Lori's Lolly Time iCloud account, the detective found another account linked to Chad Daybell. It was stored as Melanie2, the number 2. There's a text with an attached photo showing Chad, and then there's more romantic discussions. July 17th, Chad to Lori. I took a photo with Alan Osmond for Mark. And then they show the photo on the screen there that Chad took with whoever this person is. July 18th, Lori got the email. She's not the beneficiary and had that phone conversation with Banner Life. Then later texted Chad, I just got the letter from the insurance company saying I'm not the beneficiary. It's a spear through my heart. Who do you think he changed it to? Brandon or probably Kay? He left nothing for JJ. Chad, wow, that's terrible. There is no way to find out. Lori, I might be able to see when I get his computer on Sunday. I could check the emails sent to the insurance company. It will show change of beneficiary. He must have done it recently. Chad, it seems you would have had to agree to the change. Maybe your name was forged. You should have a good paper trail to prove it. I love you. This is terrible, but it's probably another step in bringing down the Gadiantons, especially Brandon. In the Book of Mormon, the Gadiantons are a band of robbers that were led by someone pretending to be good. Lori responds, nope. He can change it anytime he wants. He's the agent, and anyone can change their beneficiary at any time with their own signature. I'm thinking it must be Kay. Chad, it'll be interesting if it got changed after he had 2 bullets in his chest. Lori, I don't think it could have. You can't change it after the death date. They would review that. Chad, yes, I'm thinking Kay as well. She is probably freaking out that you have these computers. I'm going to shower and give you a blessing. I'm eager to get home so we can talk. It really will be okay, my love. You are wonderful. Lori says, miss you so much. Chad, miss you the most. The state brings it in, y'all. I've been waiting on this, and they waited until they had their lead detective up there. Good move. Leave the jury with this for a long weekend. We've referred to her as Lori Vallow. Did you find evidence of when she became Lori Daybell? The witness says yes. He saw wedding photos in Hawaii and a document. They bring in this photo from Lori's Lollytime account. It was dated October 31st of 19, and the heading is Sweet Hawaii Wedding Ceremony Contract. This was dated October 31st, 2019. And just a reminder, Tammy Daybell killed October 19th. Of 2019. It looks to be a contract, Sweet Hawaii Wedding Ceremony Contract. Lori used the name Lori Ryan on there, and the state points out to the jury Ryan as in Tylee Ryan's last name. She's using her third husband's last name. The home address was Rexburg, and the wedding date was November 5th. So Lori is up for cross. She asked, when you took over the case, what did you do differently? He said the records are a lot. So he looked over iCloud, call records, phone extractions, and did a review of what Detective Moffat did prior to Detective Duncan getting the case. Lori, you walked in and saw Charles on the floor, or was he in the ambulance? And the witness, he wasn't in the ambulance. He was in the medical examiner's van. Lori goes through this timeline at the house. Who was there? What was done? She asked if the bat was tested for prints. We know there were prints, but we don't know whose they were, and the witness says that's correct. She asked if the DNA swab on the bat was tested, and the witness said no. You have to look at the probative value of testing that DNA on the bat. The bat was owned by Tylee in a house where you lived and where Alex was. Charles was living in the house when the bat was purchased, so anybody's DNA could be on that bat. It would not bring any clarity as to who held that bat that morning. Lori, no blood on the bat? Nope, nothing we saw. Lori, if there was no DNA of Alex's on there, would it tell us Alex was never hit on the head with the bat? I thought that was a weird question. But the witness said there was no blood on the bat. A DNA swab was taken later, but again, no sign of blood. She asked who would request that be tested, and he said that would be me or Detective Moffat. Lori, if Charles's DNA was on the bat, wouldn't that tell us something? The witness said that Charles touched the bat at some point, but again, the bat was around before this day and everybody had access to it. Lori, but wouldn't it show that Tylee had the bat taken from her? Objection sustained. Lori asked, it wasn't after my investigator said none of the guns have been tested? No. Lori, Detective Coons confirmed no tests were done on my husband's shirt? No. Lori, why didn't you request any of these tests? The witness said, I was confident with the medical examiner's report of the two shots as well as the bullet strike on the floor. There is no other explanation other than Charles was laying on the ground when he was shot. Lori, the medical examiner couldn't say that when he testified, but you're saying that it's your opinion? Were you there to witness it with your own eyes? No. Did me, Tylee, and Alex cooperate on July 11th? The witness said he cannot answer to that. There is a lot of back and forth about all the reports of everyone, and you're the case agent. You can't say we fully cooperated. There are some objections due to lack of personal knowledge that were sustained. Lori asked if she turned over my husband's phone when asked. Yes. She asked about when Alex turned his phone in, and the witness isn't sure when he did. He doesn't know if they made a copy of Alex's phone. Lori says, you're the case agent. The witness said he would just have to look. Lori, you're the case agent and you don't know if the person who shot my husband's phone was downloaded? The witness said, I think all we have is his call detail records. Lori, don't you think it would be important to have the extraction? The witness says, knowing what we know now, yes. Lori, would you call that an oversight by Detective Moffitt? Objection sustained. Was the phone returned to him that day? How did that happen? Just handed it to him? Meaning Alex? The witness isn't sure. Lori, in all those text messages about people, did you interview my mother, Janice? Did you read or watch her interviews with law enforcement? What about my sister? No. Did you interview our father? No. Lori says, so the only source you have is through our brother, Adam. And the witness said, and all the contact in your iCloud. Lori says that he did not ask the context of these messages with family members. And the witness said they were not present. Lori, did you ask my mom, my sister, my niece what they meant in those text messages? No. Did you ask me? He says I couldn't. Lori, through your investigator, you found out Alex wouldn't text or call Adam back. The witness says he's not interpreting. He just didn't see it. There's no indication of a call or text back from Alex to Adam. Lori said it looks like he didn't. And the witness said Adam testified he did not get a response from Alex. And that is also consistent with Alex's phone records. Lori, so the only person you got information from is our estranged brother? Objection sustained. Is it your normal protocol to talk to only one witness? No. He did say he was present when there was a phone call happening with Summer. Lori, you didn't ask her any questions about the text messages? The witness said, I said no. Lori, as the case agent and a detective, do you form a suspicion and stick to it? No. You testified about Nephi. What research did you do? The witness said he Googled Nephi, and over the last 4 or 5 years, he has asked members of the LDS church, and they all tell him the same story told by Adam on the stand. Lori, are you aware there's 15 books in the Book of Mormon, and there are many stories of Nephi? So in the first story about Nephi, there's an objection that's sustained. So you did an internet search and it gave you all the stories of Nephi? How long did you do your research? The witness couldn't tell you. Lori, did you discover there's 25 stories of Nephi in the Book of Mormon and there's 4 different prophets called Nephi? You have no idea what I was referring to. The witness, I can only go off what I see. Lori, you relayed to the jury it's an order to kill. The witness said, I just said it's similar to the story Adam told. Lori, you have knowledge of what my text meant? No. Lori, are you aware Alex was a stand-up comedian? He always jokes. Were you speculating when you read my texts? The witness, no, I was reading them. Lori, today you were explaining them to the jury. The witness says those were read to the jury, not explained. Lori, do you feel you've searched for facts in this case? Not testing these things. You're confident you can say what happened even though you weren't there? The witness, I'm confident. Lori, Did you meet with Detective Moffat when you took over? The witness said, he dropped the case file on my desk and left. Lori, do you think it's important to spray luminol on the bat? The witness, there was no blood visible on the bat. Lori, can't it still be there? The witness said if it's wiped off, there could still be protein on the bat, but they decided not to test it. Lori, wouldn't luminoling the bat be important to your investigation? No. What about the gun? The witness said we were told the shooting was 5 minutes before we got there and there's no visible blood on it. Lori, as the case agent, you have the power to have things tested, so why not? The witness again, there was no visible blood. We make choices based on the facts we have, and I did not feel it was necessary. Lori, you charged me with a crime. The witness said, I have not. Lori, you've helped charge me? The witness said, I did an investigation and I passed it forward. Lori, why not test these things available to you for over 5 years? There is an objection, the sustained, and he was done with cross. On redirect, the state asks about luminol and says it's used when you think the scene has been cleaned up and the blood would be diluted, meaning there's no visible blood, but the luminol reacts and then it lights up. You guys know we've all watched Forensic Files growing up. The witness says, yes, they were under the impression the homicide was 5 minutes before the police arrived, and they didn't expect a cleaned up crime scene, but they did look to see if there was visible blood or any hairs stuck on the bat, and they didn't see any of that. The state investigators learned there's this 47-minute time gap, and they weren't aware of how extensive the timeline was incorrect. The witness said correct. They did not realize the time discrepancy until the phone was being examined the next day. They move on to talking about phone data. Each account can have terabytes. You can only look at one account at a time. And then you have to try to match these text messages between other people's accounts. It's a laborious process. And then when they learn one thing from one account, they have to try to line it up with the other accounts. And it's made clear what was talked about today was just a grain of what they found overall. The state on July 11th, did you understand the relevance of cell phone and iCloud data? He said it sounded like the shooting happened quickly. He didn't think there had been any planning for weeks or months initially, but they started seeing inconsistencies between statements and the evidence. As for the self-defense theory, there were consistencies at the scene, but they're not aware of the background of these individuals. But after they learned more about Lori and Charles's interactions, they had enough probable cause to get search warrants for these accounts. And he says it isn't a quick process. As far as DNA and blood, you would expect to find Tylee's DNA on the bat. It was her bat. The allegation was Alex was hit in the head with a bat. You looked and didn't see any visible blood, and the person who processed it didn't see any visible blood. And also, there was no damage to the plastic on the tip of the bat. The state also points out when the medical examiner's office comes to collect a body, it doesn't leave in an ambulance, it leaves in a van. And also, does the doctor come out? The witness says no. When the medical examiner testified to the wound being shored, but not knowing what the body is against, he's not at the scene looking at the body or the defect on the floor. But the state points out you were at the scene and you saw that the exit wound on the shoulder was in line with the defect on the ground, and the witness says yes. The state, any information that Janice, Summer, or Barry Cox were present? The witness said no. Summer was out of town and not around on July 11th. He said when he first started seeing the mention of Ned, he had to reach out to Lori's friends to understand who Ned was. The physical scene was inconsistent with what they were initially told, and it required additional research into electronic data to clarify what happened as the weeks and months went on and the more they learned. After everything, he ultimately turned it in for charges. There was a couple of jury questions to end the day. Regarding the photos of Alex's phone, what was the time on the top left corner of the photo? The witness said, I believe 2:30. Next question, the countertop with the photo of Charles's phone. Do you recognize that as Alex or Lori's house? The witness said he knows it's not the same countertop as Lori's. We know it was Alex's. So that was it for today. I think the state did a really good job with Detective Duncan on the stand, just giving this jury one realization after another about the affair, Charles contacting Tammy, the text messages the day of. So we will see if Lori chooses to testify. She didn't say no today. So I guess she's going to lay her head down tonight and think about it. But that is it for today. I appreciate all y'all hanging out and watching with the Alibiers. It's been a great group in there. Thanks to the mods who are in there for 8 hours a day, making sure it's a safe place that honors the victim in this, Charles Vallow, as well as the other victims, JJ, Tylee, and Tammy, who are always connected. Here's to justice for Charles. If we have closings on Monday, we could have a verdict Monday. So big day. Hope you guys will hang out with me for that. In the meantime, hope you guys have a good rest of your evening. We will see you soon.